It's March 2019. Kurdish forces are shelling the village of Baghouz, where the last jihadists of the Islamic State have taken refuge. They're surrounded. Taking advantage of a lull in the early morning, women appear like ghosts, climbing out of the cache and tunnels dug up all over the village. Later, they're followed by the men, some wounded, the last of the jihadists. They surrender, exhausted. The fighters are searched as they leave the village to make sure they're not carrying any explosives. The Kurdish forces couldn't have imagined there would be so many of them. Men, women and children. 27,000 people, now prisoners. Not far away, tensions are at their highest. The women, separated from their men, are attacking the journalists. One of them, radicalized, refuses to admit defeat. She's sure that ISIS and its fighters will continue to strike. Among these women is Dorothée Macquer, wife of Jean-Michel Klein, brother of Fabien Klein, who claimed responsibility for the Paris attacks in November 2015. The two brothers died here in Baghouz. For the camera, Dorothée Macquer shares a very personal account of this war that is coming to an end.
La France a commencé à attaquer en premier. Et ben voilà, et c'est triste. C'est triste parce que comme je dis à chaque fois, dans une guerre, il y aura toujours des innocents. C'est triste des deux côtés, mais sauf voilà, ils ont commencé en premier. On leur a dit d'arrêter. On a demandé à la France de se retirer. Ils n'ont pas voulu se retirer.
But today, ISIS is defeated and Baghouz is in ruins. Finally, the Kurdish forces can celebrate their victory and raise their nation's color in place of the black flag of ISIS, which has just lost its last stronghold. It is the end of the caliphate, the sinister Islamic State empire stretching across Syria and Iraq. It has taken 5 years and the mobilization of around 20 countries to reconquer this vast territory of 230,000 square kilometers, roughly the same size as the United Kingdom. The women and children are sent to camps and the men to prison. There are 10,000 prisoners with 2,000 foreigners among them. They are ousted because no country apart from the United States wants to repatriate them. That evening, Kurdish forces transferred them to the town of Hake, whose university has been transformed into a prison. With a total of 4,800 inmates, it's the world's biggest prison for jihadists. Holding 70 people per cell, men live on the floor in catastrophic hygienic conditions. A Belgian jihadist testifies that, like him, many injured inmates are left without care.
I'm from ISIS. I came into Aleppo and I went to Deir ez-Zor, and there I get again injured. And I have this injury here, and I have injury here and in my back.
The jihadists only have one option: to escape from this infernal prison. But how? On this surveillance video, we watch them act out the death of a prisoner to catch the guards' attention. Then they attack in groups and try to escape. A year ago, on the 20th of January 2022, jihadists took advantage of the distraction, attacking from the outside and entering the prison. These are reactivated Islamic State sleeper cells trying to free the prisoners. In the morning, they occupied several buildings and the Kurdish forces tried to dislodge them. The prison becomes a war zone where 200 jihadists and hundreds of prisoners, now freed, have taken up arms. The Kurds are trying to retake possession of the prison. The jihadists are resisting. They've got nothing left to lose and are fighting hard. It will take around 10 days to advance through the prison and flush out the last jihadists. Good. 375 of them were killed. Without food or ammunition, those who survived in the cellars eventually surrender. Did any of the prisoners manage to escape? There are no official figures to confirm this, but there's talk of several hundred fugitives. At the gates of the recently recaptured prison, we follow Siad Met Ali, spokesman for the Kurdish forces. The area is now under control, but the tension is palpable. He explains what happened.
چتین گود هندری ویگرتی که ده بو گونیزی 4000 ها بو گو و بچک بکی و بالاف کی توای حسکه آد یمین گو سیطره کی گشتی لسر بازار حسکه بکش بر گو شانین و شارتیجی دهمان دمه ده کتن تفگری ده لکیلک وینا کی دهمان روزه ده دولت ترک آداگیر کر و فصائلین وینا کی.
The Kurds are celebrating their victory, but this joy is solely intended for media purposes. In reality, they have lost 120 fighters, and the Islamic State has shown that it's still very much alive.
هلبت باقتنا داعش اللي باغوزي صورتك هات افاكرين جو داعش تنبوا او صورت نراسبو جبرويك داعش فرصتك ما زنديت جو جارك خنو بكي و چتين خوا هم كوم بكي تجنيد اخو مصدر بكي هلبت باكرو رجلات السوري بتن اخو نكاري في باري راكي داعش بارك جهانيه نبارك متنيا داعش شري جهاني قشتيتكي نتني شري متكي.
The ISIS fighters have never admitted defeat. Whether in hiding or held in Kurdish and Iraqi prisons, they're rebuilding their forces and planning their return. The Islamic State has become a multinational terrorist. In Afghanistan and Pakistan, in Southeast Asia and Egypt, in the Sahel, in Somalia and in Mozambique, organizations are pledging allegiance to the Islamic State and increasing their attacks and summary executions. During the 5 years of its reign, the Islamic State has amassed billions of diverting resources like oil and cotton and collecting taxes from its population. With this war treasure, it finances sleeper cells in cities and fighting units in the desert, which are leading a real guerrilla war. The UN estimates the presence of around 10,000 fighters in the desert area between Iraq and Syria. The proof lies in these drone images of the camps. A camp is soon destroyed by targeted bombing. On land, the Iraqi army is still tracking ISIS on its territory. The Kurds in Syria are trying to retain 10,000 jihadists in prison. They want to try them for their numerous crimes, but at the moment it's impossible.
في شهر 11 حتى أنا مكوري خسكنوا عندي شما جبر جروجانا طيارة مسيرة للسر محكمة بو جبر ويدر حال دما أو قرتي مراكر ما برنجيكي آمن ومكاري خسكنوا عندي.
Justice was blocked in Syria, but there were convictions in Iraq. Here's exclusive footage of the trials where 11 French jihadists were sentenced to death. Among those condemned to death is Frenchman Baim Nejara. In Baghdad, his sister, whom we will call Miriam, is the first to be allowed into the high-security prison where he's being held.
J'appréhende énormément le fait de le voir.
Another major concern are the French women and children who live in Syrian camps where the Islamic State rules.
C'est catastrophique, on est tout le temps dans la peur, on vit au milieu des chats et des rats, des scorpions, enfin, de la saleté partout, on n'a rien, enfin voilà, j'ai un enfant malade, c'est une catastrophe.
Iraq is demanding justice because every day new ISIS mass graves are being discovered across the country. In the Baghdad morgue, we're searching for the identities of 55,000 missing people. These are the victims of a war that we don't talk about anymore, but which is still going on every day between Iraq and Syria. Last April, we, alongside the Iraqi army, entered the Sunni province of Salah ad-Din, north of Baghdad. As big as the Paris region, it's especially dangerous and uncontrolled, an area where ISIS can still count on its supporters among the population. A few weeks ago, jihadists attacked this security post and killed 9 Iraqi policemen. They easily conduct their guerrilla warfare, hiding in this immense, uncontrollable desert. The Iraqi army arrived with heavy resources to clear the area. The soldiers have one mission: to sweep the territory and find ISIS. The general staff set up a camp and headquarters to manage operations. The Golden Division that fought ISIS in Fallujah or Mosul is on the front line.
راح يتبلغ ال 34 بخصوص هذا النداء وهذا سيدي استلمت.
خالد فورميشن جوال وليد.
On land, the entire 9th Division and its 8,000 men are on the move. A mobilization which, like at the height of the war against the Islamic State, confirms danger in the area.
لا سابقا كان عندهم عمليات حقيقة وكنا ننطي ضحايا وشهداء فقاطع عمليات اغتيال. أكثر شيء كان هو اللي تضرر. لذلك احنا نصر على انه هاي المنطقه نشن بها عمليات تطهير وكذلك عندنا ان شاء الله بالمستقبل عمليه مسك هذه القطعات ما تتحرك من هذا المكان الى منطقه الحاوي.
To find the several hundred ISIS members still hiding in the area, the army systematically searches the desert terrain. The ground is covered in explosives dating back from the war of reconquest. But there are also more recent traps left by jihadists. Detonators are connected to mortar shells. The deminers will neutralize them. This region has been bombed from the skies, but there's no substitute for a ground search. From the top of the cliffs, the general staff direct the men advancing into the valley. Their mission is to inspect the caves and look for hiding places. Tension is at its highest today, because kamikaze actions are always possible.
وين محمد ابو الاعلام؟
حفره
تعال
اكو حفره هنا
وخري
والله الجو اكو حفره جو صايره
ما ترى وصلت لي الجوال
كله احنا سحقنا عليه.
خفف الموجود من هذا.
The cave is empty, but the jihadists definitely lived here. They left a gun.
لا والله هم موجودين جزء جو. هذه مضافة للعصابات الإرهابية فكانوا متواجدين هنا ومن شافوا الجيش تقدم قوات الأمنية تركوا هذا المكان فينتظرونا ننسحب حتى يرجعون. احنا هذا المكان راح ننهي حتى بعد ما يستغلونه هاي العناصر الإجرامية لأن هناك ظهر كان المأوى مالتهم ومكانهم الأمين اللي يتحصنون به ويضمون به أو يكتسون به عتادهم تجهيزاتهم المؤن مالتهم.
The soldiers decided to blow up the cave to destroy the cage for good and prevent it from being used again. Sometimes the army managed to flush out armed groups. Last June, a patrol killed these jihadists. Among them were 3 important ISIS governors. They owned numerous weapons and explosives, an operation confirming that the war in Iraq is far from over. The army is burning a large area of marshland. Jihadists could be hiding there, and the area is riddled with explosives.
رغم ما كانت الظروف صعبة بس كانت احنا لنا عزيمة ولنا اصرار قدرنا نتخلص من عندهم ماكو اي تواجد للعدو بس لقينا بعض المضافات وعبوات كانوا زارعيها بالطرق انه وقدرنا نفجر هاي العبوات ونتخلص منهم ان شاء الله وما كسر الارض طاهرة ونظيفة.
Mission accomplished apparently, but where is ISIS? The jihadists seem to have deserted the area alerted by the troops' movements. But the next morning, on the outskirts of the camp, sentries spotted a man advancing through a field. It was an ISIS suicide bomber coming into the field to blow himself up. The scene was filmed by a sentry. 2 soldiers shot at the jihadist, who exploded without hitting his target. The danger is always there, unpredictable. And the Islamic State isn't only hiding in the desert. It continues its activities in prison camps, in particular the al-Hol camp in Syrian Kurdistan, where 72,000 people are crammed in together. This is where the wives and children of jihadists were taken after the fall of Baghouz, a huge camp with no hygiene or running water, a power keg where insecurity reigns. The Kurdish forces managing the camp have been abandoned by the international coalition. Without resources, they are completely overwhelmed by the situation. And as these images show, the population has been left to fend for themselves.
Just look around you, look at the situation. It's not humane, we're not animals, you know? They're treating us like animals and we're not.
We were told to come out. To be honest, we chose to come out.
This is the perfect breeding ground for the Islamic State, which is re-establishing itself and starting its law here. Last August, 400 soldiers from the Syrian Democratic Forces tried to take control of the camp. They searched the tents, checked identities and found weapons. Machine guns, rocket launchers and explosives. We met the spokesman for the Kurdish forces who confirmed that ISIS had enough weapons to prepare an armed attack to free the camp.
داعش دفرت تخوازي روابونه كي خود شبكي وسيطرة كي خود سر كسين جو دندوري كامبيدا بك أوجي بريا كشتنيا أب كسين جو تينا كشتنجي هلبت كسين جو دوري إيديولوجي ماشي عقيدة داعشة شي كسين جو الجوري وانا كتاب نجاري دبنا هدف أرمانجن داعشة يعني ما وكاني سر زمان شلو سه چالاكي از باورم هبون دنابده شلو چار هاتنا كشتن دنابده جزاروك وجنجي هبون.
To limit overcrowding, the Kurds have opened a second camp in Roy. Exceptionally, we are allowed inside. The camp is smaller, but living conditions are the same. A village of plastic sheets, the home of 3,000 women and children. Among them is French woman Margot Dubreuil, who we meet at an alley corner. This 32-year-old mother has been married successively to 4 ISIS commanders. 3 children were born from these unions.
C'est un hiver très difficile avec la neige, avec le vent. Là, ça va commencer le mois des tempêtes, des pluies. C'est sûr que c'est difficile.
Vous voulez rentrer en France?
Bon, c'est compliqué là aussi. Les conditions en France, c'est compliqué. Hein.
to leave or to stay. Margot Dubreuil hesitates because she knows that if she returns to France, she risks 7 years in prison. And like many of the mothers here, she doesn't want to be separated from her children. There are 50,000 of them living in the 2 camps of Roy and Al-Hol. These children grow up in dirt and dust without access to schooling. 90% are under 12 years old, and some were even born here and have only ever lived in this open-air prison. We come across one of them, a little French boy.
Tu habitais où en France?
À Paris.
À Paris? Ah bon. Tu es avec ta maman ici?
He refused to say any more. We also came across a lot of French women who lived alone in the camp with their children. We met Sana. Originally from Clermont-Ferrand, she envisions a different future for her 3 children.
Vous n'êtes pas venu pour combattre ici?
Non,
au départ?
absolument pas. Enfin,
Vous êtes venu pour quoi alors?
je suis venue pour une personne, parce que je voulais changer de vie, pour vivre avec une personne que j'aimais.
D'accord.
Voilà, c'était pas pour faire la guerre ou voilà.
Ouais. Et lui, il faisait quoi? Il était combattant?
Non, quand je l'ai connu, c'est pas ce qu'il disait, bien évidemment, mais après, une fois arrivé,
Il était combattant?
Voilà.
Ok.
La chose à donner, tout est différent en fait. Quand tu as une personne face à toi, enfin, c'est pas du tout pareil. Elle peut te dire, elle peut te faire grouper ce qu'elle veut à distance. Enfin voilà. Hein.
Il est où maintenant, vous savez?
Il n'est plus là, hein. Il n'est plus dans ce monde et c'est très bien.
Ah oui.
C'est très bien comme ça, voilà quoi. Et mes enfants, ce qui compte, c'est de les sortir de là, vraiment. Pour moi, c'est ma priorité.
If Sana goes back to France, she'll go to prison, but she asks to be repatriated for her children. She doesn't want them to grow up here surrounded by barbed wires.
C'est catastrophique, on est tout le temps dans la peur, on vit au milieu des chats et des rats, des scorpions, enfin, de la saleté partout, on n'a rien, enfin voilà, j'ai un enfant malade, c'est une catastrophe. C'est une catastrophe, c'est inhumain. Ouais. Franchement, laisser des femmes comme ça, c'est inhumain de dire oui, on va laisser parce qu'on a peur. Peur de quoi en fait? Peur de quoi? C'est, voilà, et oui, des gens radicalisés, il y en a partout dans le monde. Hein.
Germany, the Netherlands, Belgium. Most states have repatriated women and children to their country of origin. The majority of French women also want to return, but their requests are unsuccessful. In Paris, lots of associations are fighting for the safe return of these mothers and children. We met lawyer Maria Dosé at her office.
Samy, comment il va?
Ça va, il fait de jolis dessins, il a appris à lire.
The lawyer defends several women who want to leave the camps and are asking to be repatriated to France. During our visit, she speaks with Sarah. Her sister, Inès, and her 6-year-old nephew, Sami, are trapped in the Roy camp.
Tous les enfants qui reviennent, qui sont sortis de Baghouz, sont des enfants extrêmement traumatisés. Il y a des enfants qui racontent des scènes vraiment horribles, quoi, des scènes de guerre. Ils ont vu des boyaux, ils ont vu des gens déchiquetés, des gens brûlés, être transformés en torches vivantes. Donc c'est des enfants qui vraiment ont besoin d'un suivi psychologique, et, sauf qu'au lieu de ça, en fait, on les enferme.
In recent months, France has repatriated around 40 women and 100 minors, but there are still 70 mothers trapped in the Syrian camps and around 200 French children.
Est-ce que vous vous rendez compte que ces enfants n'ont jamais vu un pédopsychiatre ou un psychologue après avoir vécu ce qu'ils ont vécu à Baghouz? Et après 3 ans, 4 ans, 5 ans dans les camps, moi j'ai un gamin, il est rentré à 6 mois dans un camp, il a 5 ans et demi maintenant, il n'a jamais vu un psychologue. Vous vous rendez compte? Vous vous rendez compte que j'ai essayé d'organiser des missions humanitaires avec des psychiatres et des médecins et que c'est refusé? Vous vous rendez compte que moi, avocat, j'ai pas le droit de rentrer dans ce camp? Vous vous rendez compte que les familles n'ont pas le droit de rentrer dans ce camp?
Yet the French government planned to repatriate all the families. As this intelligence document reveals, all men, women and children were to return to France the day after the fall of Baghouz. Doctors, psychologists and foster families had been provided for the children, and arrest warrants were prepared for the adults. But on the eve of the repatriation, the government backed down and nothing happened. A decision that clearly came from the highest level of the state, unacceptable in the eyes of justice.
On respecte nos engagements européens et internationaux. On agit comme un État de droit. On arrête ce massacre. On cesse d'être ignoble. On prend nos responsabilités. Humanité, responsabilité. On rapatrie tout le monde et vite.
There can be a worse fate than the camps. In Syria and Kurdistan, some children live in prisons, sleeping in cells with their mothers who have been convicted of violence. In the mornings, they go straight from the prison to the playground. This prison school was created by the Kurds to allow them to live at least a few hours of their day as kids. Perwin, the headmistress, is a Muslim woman who voluntarily chooses not to wear a veil in front of these children who live under the influence of their radicalized mothers.
لقوري حركاتي واجمة دمام جلال خوتكن پر تعليقتكن سرجلي قوام خوتكن اسلوبي ما بوري ما يفكري دمام موزيكي قهدارتكن متعلقين يعني تشمون فيتشتي بيلينا متشددن دسبيكي وقتي ما موزيك استعمال كرد مركزي ده يعني قوي خو قرت برعازبون زاروكي 3 صالي و4 صالي حجاب ودست داني برجع خو نهانا هدي يعني فرق قالك هيج بري شي بحتنا فرق قالك نابر هذا.
The children come from 14 nationalities, and among them are 2 French children. Anes, aged 10, refuses to speak to us in French, even though it is his native tongue. He has obviously received clear instructions from his mother.
ما أعرف كثير أحكي يعني أحكي أعرف إذا كلمات بالتركي وبالأوزبكي بس.
وبالفرنسية؟
حتى ما فت لها أبداً حتى ما شفتها.
The teachers try to open the children up to the world around them, taking them out of their immediate reality.
بس إيش لما يرجعوا على أمهاتهم هذا المشكلة الكبيرة يعني لو ما يرجعون على أمهاتهم نحن أنا يعني عندي استعداد أغير عقلياتهم.
راستا يعني عمري 4 سال درباسي صالة بيجادبو نخوشيت سري دهابو من جيجبو دعم جرتشي بك منطرسي دكتور ودرزيا مقول عبودي يعني تمازن بيبي دكتور جبوت خور حدكي وزارو كار حدكي قلت لازم أصير مجاهد مقول عبودي تشما قو ماما يقول لازم مجاهد لأنه جباري ماما إنه يا مهمة الجوينة مقول جبوتشي قو رح أقتل العسكرية قصدي هي دافيدري حرس مقول أنا قو أنتي كمان مقول الدكتورة قو إيه الدكتورة كمان مقول ليش قو لابسة بنطلون يعني جيلي ما اعتبار بينهم كفار بالنسبة لشوارع مجير قو مقول أز مسلمانة از اشتحستكم از تردليزم از اشتر شكرتينم بسكويتينم قلت لا بس أنتي كافرة تلبسي بنطلون لازم أقتلكي.
It's the end of school. The children go back to the cells with their mothers to spend the night. In Iraq, people are still recovering from the terrible war against the Islamic State that lasted 5 years. The war left a lasting impression on all those who saw it. Ali Jawad, a famous Iraqi television reporter, and without a doubt the bravest, witnessed the horror live during his reporting. Even to this day, when he allows us into his home, he confides that he can never get over what he saw. The after effects are too deep. The Islamic State has spread terror across its path. It took over the Shbaisha military camp, training recruits for the Iraqi army. ISIS murdered 1,700 cadets, some in a macabre display on the riverbank.
الآثار النفسية اللي يتعرض لها المقاتلين، اللي يتعرضوا لها الإعلاميين، اللي يتعرضوا لها الناس اللي كانوا تحت سطوة تنظيمات داعش، هذه الحروب، الدماء، المشاهد الوحشية، التفجيرات، قطع الروس، تبقى يعني آثارها النفسية على كل شخص شارك في هذه المعركة. أنا شخصياً لا زلت أعاني من هذه يعني أقدر أقول عليها الاضطرابات النفسية.
55,000 people are still missing in Iraq, and with the discovery of each new mass grave, bodies are sent to the morgue in Baghdad to try and identify them. The Forensic Institute cleans the skeletons and reconstructs them. For the first time, a television crew is allowed to enter the site. The forensic scientists and their assistants are working hard to try and understand the circumstances of each victim's death.
والهجة هيك الهت
يعني دخلت الطلقه هالشكل
الهجة بالضبط زي هنا الهت كمان ميلها الهجة هيك فطلقنا هذا ومسوي
ماخذ هذا.
We have cases from different periods. We have cases from Iraq and Syria war. We have massacre from Saddam regime. We have cases from the ISIS crimes. We have many cases.
From the dentition and the size of the bones, particularly the shoulder blade, the team can determine the victims' ages. Most of the time, the cases are men. But there are also cases of women and even children.
It's very hard for us to see young people, or some cases we work on their children and juvenile. But, this is our work, so we have to make it, and we keep our emotion inside the way and make our job.
The skeletons are stored in cardboard boxes. One body, one life in every single one. Scientists can find out the age and sex of the victims, but they can't identify them.
So this is the cleaning unit.
How are they returned to their families? The team uses DNA research. A piece of bone from each victim is analyzed in this laboratory. The sample is compared with these samples of thousands of Iraqi families who have deposited their DNA here in the hope of finding their loved one.
So these are fridges and deep freezing for samples and reagents, because we need to keep the optimal temperature for each sample.
The DNA research has only identified around 1,000 bodies so far. This is very few, and for the families, the war will only truly be over the day they find their loved one's body. It's time for the jihadists of the Islamic State to be held accountable for all their horrors. In Syrian Kurdistan, 12,000 fighters are to be tried. The Kurds have built a special court. It's headed by a woman, an anti-terrorist judge. She wishes to remain anonymous because of threats from ISIS. We will call her Aman. As she explains, the trials have stopped for the time being.
في شهر 11 حتى أنا ما كوريخ وسكنوا عندي شما جبرقوا روجانا طيارة مسيرة للسر محكمة بو ويعني وك معلومات جمار هاتن وورجي قصف بكي جبروا يدر حال دا ما أوقرتي مراكن ما برنجيكي آمن وما كوريخ وسكنوا عندي.
Threatened militarily by Turkey, enemy of the Kurds, the judge felt completely abandoned by the international coalition and accused France of having palmed off its jihadists.
لا ما حملة باغوز دا وحتى رجائيرو ما بانك شانديج حمك سيارة إنه آلي كريمة بكنت درباري محاكمات فاندا هناك دولتا مخابن جنسية خوجوانك شاندنا دبي شيء مجوانتنا هناك دولات مثلا فرنسا دقوت بلا العراق محكمة ببن أموال راكن عراق وبلا محكمة ببن وقت اشتي ما فهم كل يعني بستيق قانون عراقي إعدامه يعني أي واحد منتسب لتنظيم داعش مباشرة إعدامه يعني وقت شيء خصوصا إنه بشكل غير مباشر خجوان خلاص بكن يا ترى راسن قشابو كوجن بريكة كي قانوني مثلا القانون إعدام عراقي.
The judge mentions 11 jihadists who were transferred from Syrian Kurdistan to Iraq, where they were sentenced to death. In the north of France, we are going to meet the father of one of these men. His son is 31 years old. He converted to Islam and changed his appearance overnight. His father watched helplessly as his son became radicalized.
Je vais vous montrer quand il a commencé à voir le recruteur, comment il s'est transformé. Voilà quand il a commencé à être, qu'on lui a fait le lavage de cerveau. Mon fils est parti, il m'a dit qu'il allait faire, il partait au Yémen, en école coranique pour apprendre l'arabe littéraire. Donc moi j'ai appris qu'il était parti là-bas, tout se passait bien, mon fils n'est pas parti comme un voleur, il est venu nous dire au revoir, il avait acheté des nouveaux habits, tout ça, qu'on se contactait par WhatsApp. Et un jour, le contact par WhatsApp, j'ai vu que c'était marqué que ça venait de Syrie. Donc je l'ai appelé tout de suite pour lui demander qu'est-ce qu'il foutait là-bas. Je lui ai dit, t'as rien à foutre là-bas, c'est pas ton problème à toi, tout ça. Il m'a dit, on est là, on va combattre Bachar el-Assad parce qu'il tue sa population, donc on peut pas laisser faire ça.
This young man with no radical history was radicalized in just a few weeks by a couple from Kirkuk. He attended this mosque. In 2013, he went to Syria and fought with the al-Nusra Front in a group of jihadists, just like this one, whose images we were unable to obtain. He pledged allegiance to the Islamic State. Arrested by the Kurds, he was transferred to Iraq in January 2019. In a telephone conversation recorded by his father, he claims that French intelligence agents were present during the transfer.
Voilà. Lui aussi n'avait pas de nouvelles de sa famille. Qu'est-ce qu'il a arrêté en Syrie?
Les Kurdes, ils nous ont fait partir en Irak.
Ouais.
Et à la frontière d'Irak, il y avait les Français qui étaient là. On les entendait parler.
Ouais, d'accord, ok.
Another French jihadist, also sentenced to death, followed the same path. We meet his sister. Her first name has been changed. We will call her Miriam. This French jihadist, nicknamed the Recruiter by French intelligence, was linked to the departure of lots of young people to Syria. He was a member of the Raqqa police force at the time, when the city of 300,000 inhabitants was the capital of the Islamic State. The police, who allowed themselves to be filmed in the early days, are responsible for enforcing the strict laws of Sharia rule.
Aujourd'hui, nous avons appris une nouvelle.
In the video, Paris has collapsed, which glorifies the Paris attacks. He rejoices in the success of the Islamic State.
Alhamdulillah. C'est une très très bonne nouvelle pour nous. Mais ça, nous répondons juste à votre agression. C'est vous les terroristes. Vous mentez, dans les médias, vous mentez sur nous.
Arrested by Kurdish forces, Brahim Nejara is transferred to a secret prison in Iraq like this one, which we were able to film. The prisoners are subjected to particularly harsh interrogations. During a telephone call she had with her brother after his arrest, Miriam recorded his testimony.
Écoute-moi, ils nous ont électrocutés. Ils nous ont électrocutés, frappés avec des balles de baseball. Ils nous ont exposés au soleil, avec une grande chaleur. Ils nous ont frappés avec des coups de poing, des coups de pied, etc. Nargués, insultés, ils nous ont fait pas à boire, etc. aussi, tu vois. Et en fait, ils nous ont mis plein de choses, en fait. Ils nous ont mis plein de choses qu'on n'a pas fait. D'accord? Et on a dû signer sur des feuilles avec des yeux bandés.
Now, Brahim Nejara is living in Syria, where he has settled with his wife, 2 children and brother-in-law. So, despite his crimes and the active role he played in ISIS, why was he transferred and tried in Iraq, a country he never fought in?
Et il le dit, hein, tout haut, tout fort. Hein. J'ai rien à faire là-bas, j'ai jamais mis les pieds là-bas. C'est vrai, certes, j'ai été en Syrie. Mais qu'est-ce que je fais en Irak? Pourquoi ils ne nous rapatrient pas?
To understand his transfer from Syria to Iraq, we went to Baghdad to meet the National Security Advisor, one of the highest authorities in the country. Kazim al-Arai confirmed that there was an agreement between France and the previous Iraqi government.
العراق ليس لديه رغبة
باستلام أي داعشي أجنبي ومحاكمته على أرض العراق وهو لم يرتكب جريمة على الأرض العراقية. في زمن حكومة السيد عادل عبد المهدي تم استلام عدد من الفرنسيين بالاتفاق مع الحكومة الفرنسية، ولكن مع الأسف الحكومة الفرنسية لم تفي بالوعد باستقبال هؤلاء وإعادتهم إلى فرنسا وما زالوا في السجون العراقية.
France would have paid Iraq $2 million for the transfer of each of these 11 French jihadists. And even if they never fought in Iraq, they were tried by the Baghdad court, where trials are ongoing. We were able to obtain some exclusive images of the trials. With the help of a translator, the defendants were able to answer the judge's questions. The judge's face has been masked for security reasons. A Belgian jihadist explains why he went to Syria.
الأسباب اقتصادية اجتماعية نفسية كل شيء وبسبب بعدها سمعت من الناس ترجع على سوريا. منين سمعت؟ ناس على الشاشات الإخبارية يعني. وبسبب متابعتي ناس يعني شفت ناس تروح في سوريا.
In one of these exclusive images, we can identify a French jihadist from behind in the defendant's box. He speaks French to his translator. The French jihadist explains that he was injured fighting in Syria and then treated in Iraq. No matter what their explanations are, and whether or not they are sorry for their actions, jihadists in Iraq are considered terrorists, and the sentence for terrorism is death. Following summary trials, all 11 Frenchmen were sentenced to death. Since then, the jihadists have been held in Rusafa, a high-security prison in Baghdad, which we filmed discreetly. The only contact they have with their families is a few letters that have been read and censored, and a minute on the phone every 3 to 4 months. Miriam feels like France has abandoned these prisoners.
On ne peut pas les laisser vivre comme ça et se dire on va les mettre de côté, qu'on n'en entende plus parler et on va les laisser comme ça dans le sens où on va tout faire pour... excusez-moi. C'est le Quai d'Orsay.
During shooting, she gets a call from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Oui, monsieur. Oui. Bonjour, monsieur. Je suis... Ah non, du tout. Ça tombe très très bien que vous m'appeliez. Est-ce que la visite du consul, est-ce qu'elle est programmée ces jours-ci? Parce que ça fait un petit moment déjà, ça fait 3 mois qu'ils n'ont pas eu de visite de consul.
Oui, ça fait un moment, on n'a pas encore de date, malheureusement, mais on y travaille.
Les seuls qui souffrent énormément, c'est les ressortissants français. Pourquoi ils n'ont aucun droit? Ne serait-ce que droit à la visite d'un médecin spécialiste. Tous les ressortissants, je ne parle pas que de mon frère, je parle aussi des autres ressortissants français. Ils sont malades. Des médicaments, on n'a pas le droit de leur envoyer. Si vous ne le faites pas, nous, est-ce que vous pouvez faire quelque chose pour que nous, en tant que famille, on puisse leur envoyer ne serait-ce que des Doliprane?
The families of foreign prisoners are allowed to visit, but not the French. This is probably part of France's agreement with the Iraqi government. However, Miriam is going to get exceptional permission to see her brother.
فلتأتي هذه العوائل وتلتقي بأبنائهم.
Let's this family come to Iraq and meet the prisoner.
It's possible?
هل هذا ممكن؟ Yes.
Could we film this?
ممكن هذه نطلعها باللقاء حتى تشوفها.
ماكو مشكلة.
Yes, no problem.
Really?
خد تجي ضيفة عندنا واحنا نرتب
She can to be our guest and we arrange the visit.
Miriam seizes the opportunity and takes the first plane out. She discovers the city. In a few hours, she will see her brother again. After all these years of separation and preferring to ignore Brahim's status as a terrorist, she finds the ordeal difficult to handle.
Ça fait 9 ans que je ne l'ai pas vu. 9 ans. J'appréhende énormément le fait de le voir. Son aspect physique, j'appréhende vachement, quoi. Je me dis, il a dû énormément changer toutes ces années où on l'a pas vu. Donc pour nous, ça va être... Enfin, pour moi, ça va être un choc. Un choc d'émotions, énormément d'émotions. Pour lui aussi.
Miriam's feelings are those of a sister who conceals the actions of her brother, a jihadist who is closely involved with the Islamic State.
هاي المحكمة. Ici.
Oh, le tribunal, il est là.
Now, Miriam will enter Rusafa, the most secure prison in Iraq, where ISIS jihadists are locked up. But she'll be going in without us, because at the very last moment, management refuses us entrance with our cameras. Under the surveillance of 8 guards, Nadia is granted 45 minutes of interview time. On her release, she only has one wish, to share the meeting with her family.
Alhamdoulilah, il manque de rien, maman. Mashallah, je lui ai dit ton message, je lui ai fait passer ton message. Il m'a dit, dis-lui, c'est moi qui m'excuse. Et il a dit, c'est moi, j'étais têtu avant, j'ai pas compris. C'est moi, Wallah, il m'a dit, Mohamed, il m'a tout fait, il m'a enlevé les passeports et tout. Il m'a dit, j'ai pas compris, j'étais trop têtu et j'ai voulu en faire qu'à ma tête. Et il a dit, je regrette. Ouais, il a dit, j'ai appris que la vie, elle n'est pas facile et que j'ai fait des bêtises.
Brahim Nejara's membership of the Islamic State and his experience in Syria do not plead in his favor, and France refuses to request his extradition. Miriam will not be seeing her brother again soon.
C'est un très très grand privilège. Que ce soit le premier des Français, des ressortissants français qui a pu avoir cette chance-là d'avoir une visite d'un membre de sa famille. C'était énorme.
The terrorist Brahim Nejara and the rest of the French death row inmates will probably never be executed, but they'll remain prisoners in Iraq for a long time to come. There's no leniency here. Jihadists have to pay for their crimes. Iraq remains mobilized in its war against ISIS, but the hunt is sometimes invisible because it's conducted through social networks. The Iraqi Ministry of the Interior has a special intelligence unit that monitors its presence and calls for jihad. Today, the Islamic State is still very active.
الإخوان هم اختصاص بهذا المجال يرصدون كل تحركات داعش الإرهابية ويعني ودائما هي ما تكون في أغلب الأحيان إنها أكاذيب حتى إنه يشوشرون على الوضع العام فالإخوان ما شاء الله عليهم موجودين هنا ويرصدون كل التحركات اللي أغلب تحركات داعش اللي يقومون بها.
We meet Saad Ma'an, the spokesman for the Iraqi Ministry of the Interior. He confirms that the war against the Islamic State is not over and that the French army is actively participating in an international coalition.
Yes, the coalition forces are available, yes. The Joint Operation Commanding, yes, we have some of our colleagues and a friend, and they are working with us. Nobody for the coalition forces now has the mission to fight on the field. It is on the airstrikes and training and advice. The Joint Operation Commanding is containing, so many countries working together.
Baghdad regains peace. Syria and Iraq are still recovering from the horrors of the Islamic State. But little by little, in Kurdistan or here in Baghdad, people are looking to turn the page. It's a day of rest, and in the Kurada district, the night is just beginning. A family outing, but under high surveillance. The police and the army are everywhere. ISIS can strike at any moment, and everyone remembers the 2016 attack that took place here and killed 323 people. The Iraqi people have learned to live with this dangerous enemy. Here, everyone has lost a loved one to the Islamic State, and everyone knows that even in its weakened state, ISIS is far from being dead.